Shalom, everyone, and thanks for clicking in to Pearls of Joy, Tru-Truth. I give praise to the Most High YAHUAH. Today I am going to be talking about who are the righteous. And I vow to say that those who keep Torah, the instructions of the Most High, are the righteous. The true believers in Yahuwah through Yahushua? Or is it believing unbelievers, those who believe in God that may go to some assembly to get their brownie points, as I would call it, but they have no understanding or have no sense of obeying what the Most High has said through his Torah. Righteousness is a spirit. It is the Ruach of the Most High. The fruit of the spirit of righteousness is that spirit that we need in order to be like the trees of righteousness planted by the rivers of water. We need to be filled with this spirit of righteousness in order to be righteous. And when we are filled with this spirit of righteousness and we're like the trees that are planted by the rivers of water, we are nourished, healthy, and able to stand when the storms come, when the war comes. We will be able to stand. A tree of righteousness starts out as a seed that grows into a tree with branches that have vines. The vines contain oil, and the fruit is produced out of the vine. The oil of the vine is like the Ruach, the spirit, the oil of joy. This is what gives a tree its strength. The spirit of righteousness, a tree that produces good fruit. The tree is like the body or the temple of the Holy Spirit. It stands and it houses the substance of righteousness. The King of righteousness in Genesis 14 verses 18, the King of righteousness, which is Melchizedek. Melchizedek is not the name of the person. I mentioned this before. Melchizedek is the name of the office of King of righteousness. And during the time that Abraham came to Melchizedek, the King of righteousness at that time was Shem. The seed of righteousness was imputed to Abraham by Yahuwah. Genesis 15:6, meaning that it was counted unto him as righteousness. And that same seed of righteousness was imputed or planted into the womb of Miriam or Mary. Abraham carried the fruit of righteousness within him in the form of seed, the righteous vessel. Through the righteous seed of Abraham came Isaac, and through Isaac came Jacob, and on down the line came our King, Yahushua, our Mashiyach, who is our righteousness. The King of righteousness. There were other kings and priests like Moses and Malachi, etc. They served as mediators until the one true, righteous, eternal one, Yahushua, came. Abraham had other children. He is a father of many nations, as Genesis 17:4-6. Many nations are not equivalent, or it's not the same as to a seed or seeds. Galatians 3:16. Let's read there. If you have your scriptures before you, turn to Galatians chapter 3 verses 16. I'm going to read 16, 17, and probably 18 as well. And it says, now to Abraham and his seed were the promises made. This is talking about the seed of Abraham. This is talking about one seed. He saith not, and to seeds, as in seeds, as of many, not talking about all the seeds that was in Abraham, but as of one, and to thy seed, which is Mashiyach. And this I say, that the covenant that was confirmed before of YAHUAH in Mashiyach, the law, which was 430 years after, cannot be disannulled, that it should make the promise of none effect. For the inheritance of the law, it is no more of promise, but YAHUAH gave it to Abraham by promise. In other words, this promise of the seed was given to Abraham, and it was not according to the law, in terms of the firstborn being the promised seed. It was because of the promise. So, men, just like fruit trees, have many seeds that differ one from another. Some good, some bad, some indifferent. That's just like a fruit from a fruit tree can have, you can pick fruit from one particular tree, and each one of those fruits are different. Some of them are very sweet and juicy, and some of them may not be as good, and some might just be dry and hard. And it all came out of the same tree, out of the same vine. The righteous seed of Abraham that was imputed to him was that one seed that brought forth the children of Israel. That's Genesis 17, 7 through 7. The promised seed. This verse is speaking only of Abraham's seed that was imputed to him. This is not talking about all of Abraham's seed that were born to him. This is only talking about the seed that is the promise. The promise of the promised seed has nothing to do with the firstborn seed, as in Ishmael or other nations. That's Genesis 17, 19 through 21. And let's turn over there if you care to. Genesis chapter 19, verses, Genesis 17, 19 through 21. Okay, just give me a moment. 19 through 21. And it says, and YAHUAH said unto Sarai, thy wife shall bear thee a son indeed, and shall call his name Isaac. And I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. And as for Ishmael, I have heard you. Behold, I have blessed him, and he will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. 12 princes shall he beget, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant will I establish with Isaac, which Sarah shall bear unto thee, or at this time, at this set time in the next year. So that's solid proof that the promised child was Isaac and not Ishmael. Not to take away anything from anyone, but it is the order of the Most High Creator. Abraham shall all, through Abraham shall all nations be blessed. That's Genesis 18, 18 through 19. This blessing would come to other nations through Abraham's promised seed, the descendants, carrying this Torah to the rest of the nations, that they too will have the opportunity to come into the fold of Israel. And through Torah shall all nations be blessed. The fruit of the Spirit of Righteousness is a law. It is a law that was brought by Yahushua. It is the foundation of the renewed covenant. This law helps us to walk out the royal law. It helps us to truly ahab, or love Yahuwah, our Elohim, with all our heart and mind. Let's look at Galatians 5 and verses 22. I'm not sure how far we're going to read, but let's go there, and we'll start at verse 22. And in verse 22, Galatians chapter 5, verse 22, this is talking about the fruits of righteousness. In 5:22, it says, "But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law." In other words, before Yahushua brought this as a law, there was no law against these. And men did whatever they wanted to do, how they wanted to do it, because there was no law against any of these things that we were doing. "And they that are Mashiyachs have crucified the flesh with the affections of lust," meaning the flesh was consumed with the lust of doing things that was against the Spirit. "If we live in the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit. Let us not be desirous of vainglory, provoking one another, envying one another." And you can go on into chapter 6, and it continues to talk about these things that are according to or against the spirit of righteousness. And here in Galatians 22 is talking about the fruit of that spirit of righteousness, because I'm going to do another lesson on breaking down and distinguishing the differences between the fruit of the Spirit and the works of the flesh, and the curse of the law. Those are talking about several different things. And in Galatians, in Galatians, it talks about the fact that the fruit of righteousness is designed to make us righteous, to make us right. It is what we needed in order to even be able to keep the laws of the Most High. Because without the spirit of righteousness, which is the Holy Spirit is the spirit of truth. It is the spirit of righteousness. And without those spirits, we would not be able to keep these laws, because the flesh was so defiled with lust and with sin that we needed to be reborn. And also in the next part of this, I don't want to make this too long, because man's attention span is short. It's a given, because sometimes after you hear so much, it's just like eating food. You can only eat so much, and then you're just full, and everything else is just spreading all over everywhere. It's just like if you consume too much word at one time, you don't absorb it all at the same time. But in the next part of this, I'm going to talk about the works of the Spirit, and I'm going to give examples about walking in the spirit of righteousness. And I'm going to also talk about the difference between the ceremonial laws and the law of sin and death. There is a difference in those. Sometimes you have people who I call the Jesus church, or the Jesus crowd. They say that we are no longer under the law, we're under grace, and it is a lack of understanding that in Romans 14, when it talks about we're no longer under the law, we're under grace, that is talking about the law of sin and death. That is the law that was fulfilled through Yahushua. When he died for us, he fulfilled the law of sin and death, wherein at one time that law of sin and death was ruling. And now, because of what he's done for us, that law of sin and death no longer rules in us, or we have the opportunity, we have the privilege or the power to cast that thing down and choose to operate according to the law of righteousness that is mentioned in Galatians 5:21 through 26. And this tells us how we are to walk in the newness of this life in Yahushua. And until then, I hope you'll stay tuned and come back and listen to some things that I'm going to lay out about the fruit of righteousness and who are the righteous. The righteous are those who keep Torah. Thanks again for clicking in. Shalom.